two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I am your host, David Straggy, and here in the room with me, I have director Anthony D.P. Mann. Correct?
Yes, and I'm very happy to be here, David. Thank you very much for bringing me onto the program today.
Definitely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how you got involved in the film industry.
Well, boy, that's a roundabout route, actually, because film was never supposed to happen. I've always considered myself a storyteller.
Okay.
And as a storyteller, that means I can tell stories either in writing or through film or through music or what have you. But usually I'm an actor. And so many moons ago, I realized nobody was knocking on this door for to offer the sort of roles that I wanted to play. So when I was very young in Montreal, I started producing stage plays. I started producing radio plays, and over the years, that turned into working in broadcast, radio and TV in a limited basis. Also, but acquiring and learning skills along the way. And one day, I decided I'm going to pick up a camera and make a movie. And had I stopped there on the merits of that very first film, we wouldn't be having that conversation. But over the years, what happened was I did eventually move into features and movies that were designed to actually be seen. Okay. And over the course of several years, over the past 10 years, I produced and appeared in 5 feature films, which I'm very, very proud of. And then in 2016 rather, I segued back into audio, and audio has been absolutely wonderful for me because as an actor, I'm a very good-looking actor who's destined for radio, if that makes sense to you.
Oh yeah.
So in 2016, I started producing full cast audio plays, which I would appear in, and I've had the opportunity to work with some actors, heroes of mine, like Tony Todd, Malcolm McDowell, David Warner, Derek Jacobi, people I love, and I've also done a fair amount of recording as a reader, a narrator for records for Cadabra Records, which is a vinyl label in New York State that produces these beautiful, just glorious records. So that's been that's been an absolute delight for me, having been able to play characters like the Phantom of the Opera and Dracula and Scrooge and Sherlock Holmes on film, and then segueing into audio and bringing some of these stories to life there with some people I love. And now it all comes full circle again, and I'm making my first film in 6 years. It's amazing how film just pulls you back like that, right? I'm
right.
done. Oh wait, we're back here again.
Well, I figured I'd take you on a journey through your experiences with each of your individual films first, and then I figured we'd go a little bit into how you got involved with Bleak December. And then I figured, last but not least, we'd talk about your newest film in endeavor. So why don't we talk about how you got involved with Terror of Dracula?
Terror of Dracula. So the very first feature I made was actually released later, but we'll come around to that. So Terror of Dracula came about. I had always wanted to do a faithful adaptation of Stoker's Dracula. I was tired of the romantic Dracula, and for reasons I can't explain, I never thought I'd be able to play the romantic Dracula. But there was a way that I felt I wanted to see Stoker's story and character portrayed. And I had expressed multiple times in many forums that if I had the opportunity, that's the film I'd want to do. And back in 2011, just as I was wrapping up work on the Sherlock Holmes film, a fellow by the name of Bill Bossert, he's an American producer, he's in Connecticut, reached out and said, if you had the opportunity to do it, how much would it cost? And I threw a figure out, and within a matter of weeks, he said, let's start to talk about this, and we did, and we hammered out a script, and lo and behold, he said, let's produce this movie. And Bill has gone on to be not only a producing partner with me, but one of my dearest and closest friends, a brother as well. Someone who takes my work and has the incredible capacity to make it better. And so that was just a beautiful, happy coming together of people. And yeah, we made Terror of Dracula, and Terror of Dracula is a big project for me. It's a turning point because it does put us on the map. We got 3 pages in Fangoria magazine, which was, for me, that was a dream come true. All the other kids wanted to be in Sports Illustrated and Glamour when they were in high school. I wanted to be in Fango. And kudos to Chris Alexander, the former editor-in-chief. He made that happen. We got 3 pages in the Tim Burton Dark Shadows issue, which is more press than Johnny Depp got in that magazine. I'm very proud to say. And that opened the door to doing some conventions. I got on the convention circuit. I went to Shockstock in London, Ontario, which is an amazing horror convention.
Okay.
That was my first show, and I got to meet people, got to screen, and that just opened the door to more projects. Bill and I produced more films together, which we'll talk about. But Dracula is very special. It got me into the books as one of the official portrayers of Dracula. The Stoker estate, Dacre Stoker, had some kind words about it. I got to go over to Cardiff, Wales, and show the film there.
Nice.
And it's been well received. It's been well received because I think part of the approach that I took, which is what Stoker intended was that Dracula's he's not a romantic character. It's about survival. He's not necessarily evil. He's surviving. He's a rodent. He's a vulture. He's a scavenger. So that worked well. And one of these days I hope to return to Dracula as well.
Okay. Now, originally you said that it didn't start out as a film project. You said that and I noticed on IMDb that you had something that was called Dracula in Canada.
Oh boy, that was a film that nobody was supposed to see, and more people did than should have. Canucula, Dracula in Canada, and it's a comedy that I shot for $250, and to be honest, most of that was beer, and it was fun. It's a little 45-minute hokey film. I'll put it up on YouTube one day. But yeah, that's my first cinematic appearance as Dracula.
Okay. And ultimately, after you directed Terror of Dracula, you went on to do a film called, where exactly did you film Terror of Dracula?
Terror of Dracula was shot here in Kingston, Ontario, which is where I've made most of my 5 features. And we're very fortunate to have this wonderful old fort just on the outskirts of the city. That's a couple of 100 years old. That looks like a giant castle that has these huge high battlements and these wonderful tunnels underneath. And we were able to do the majority of all of the castle shooting in Fort Henry. And it was certainly... It was certainly a great coup for us because it looks like it looks like Castle Dracula. And I remember in the tunnels underneath the fort while we were filming, there was actually an issue with bats. And I'll never forget at one point being chased down one of these tunnels by this little bat. Our makeup gal at the time observed, she said, I'm walking down the tunnel. She said, all of a sudden I hear this commotion and Count Dracula, I was in full makeup, comes running by me, and behind him was this little bat just chasing him. The funniest thing in the world. So that's where we shot Terror of Dracula.
Okay. Now, how did you go about and pool for your actors and actresses? And who did you end up using for some of your main characters in the film?
Well, I've done a lot of theater, and in this neck of the woods in Kingston, Kingston's about 3 hours from Toronto, 3 hours from Montreal, 2 hours from Ottawa, 2 hours from Syracuse, and smack dab in the middle of nowhere. So as a result, you've got all these wonderful actors here, people who are very talented, some who have gone to school, some who have worked in the industry, who because of the lack of proximity to the big centers, they're all doing other things. They have different careers, they have families and such, but they still are they're very much involved in the community theater scene. And some of those wonderful, some of the creme de la creme, the very best, very as close to professional as you can get without that union card. were pulled into this film, and as such, we have Terry Wade as Professor Van Helsing. We have Denise Wedge as Mina, Angela Scott, who's no longer with us, as Lucy.
I heard about that, and I apologize.
Oh, she was a lovely, lovely human being, and I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to work with her. But we had all these great people who came on board, and I think that's what elevates the film. Because you could have a great script, you could have an amazing camera, which we didn't. You could have great locations, but if you don't have the talent to bring it all together to sell an idea, then the audience sees the seams. And so, yeah, I'm proud of them. Proud of them. Great troupe.
Alrighty. So the next film that you went and filmed was Ghost Keepers, correct?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about the project and how it evolved?
I'll tell you a secret that I've told everybody else. Ghost Keepers is actually my very personal favorite of my films.
Okay.
And it's funny because it's actually the least expensive film. We shot it for $1,800, David. It's an original story. It's a ghost story. I love horror films, but I love ghost stories more than anything else. So it's very much an homage to the style of film that I enjoy, movies like The Changeling and The Haunting and such. And it's also about people like you and I, people who love genre, who love film, who love who love horror, who love science fiction, the things that we love, and it's a celebration of those things. It's about a podcaster. I was doing a podcast when this film came together. Okay. About a podcaster who assembles a group of people together at the location where his favorite movie in the whole wide world was shot, where there's a bit of a mystery, a ghost story. He's got a medium who comes with him. He's got two of the film stars who join as well to talk about the film and to talk about this strange old house. And in this film, I play a washed up horror film actor. So I don't know if that's art imitating life, but a fellow by the name of Victor Brimstone. And as the evening unfolds, it's very warm. It's about relationships. There's a lot of humor, but a genuine ghost story unfolds. And this film is actually available on Prime. It looks terrible on Prime because they've compressed the video file, so it looks very dark. But considering that we shot this for $1,800 in this old house in Gananoque, Ontario, that to me felt more like filmmaking than anything else I've done. And it was just so, without using those hipster terms, it was so organic. It was so, it was so interesting just to get in there and craft and sculpt and mold. That was a great experience, and I still watch it every year.
Now, before you got into filmmaking, did you end up having to go to film school at all for any of this?
Well, I think any of my critics will tell you that the answer to that question is an obvious one. No. I've never gone to film school. However, I did work with a local television station here for almost 10 years. Actually, I still do work with them on air from time to time when they ask nicely. And observing people, working behind the scenes, and seeing how to light and how to frame, but also I graduated from the film school of film because I've been a movie buff ever since I was knee high to a grasshopper, and specifically a very specific type of film as well. I mean, I love the classics, and where they had to work even harder to get a good image. So
now, did you end up using any actresses or actors that you used before in Terror of Dracula and Ghost Keepers?
Ghost Keepers, yes. Barry Ewan, who was our Renfield in Dracula, fantastic Renfield. He played the owner of Marlowe House, which is the haunted house in the film. Okay. And yeah, I don't think anybody else from Terror of Dracula made the cut, but they do come back.
Now, how was the reception of Ghost Keepers once it came out? And
well, again, that was very kind. We did get a mention in Fangoria. Okay. I got to go to Montreal Comic Con to screen it. It was screened. I think it was screened at Shockstock. Yeah, it was screened at several places, and it's actually probably it's had a really good life because, again, it's on Prime, it's on other streaming services as well. And because it's a ghost story, people do tend to gravitate towards it. Now, it's also probably the one film. Well, yeah, we'll say that this is the film that it'll be easier if you're not invested in it to turn it off and walk away from it, because it was shot for nothing. It was shot on a DSLR. It was very dark. It was handheld. But if you stick with it, and that's the nice comment that we do get, people who stick with it do enjoy it, because again, it's those characters that sell it.
Okay. Now, ultimately, what kind of camera do you end up using? Now, some filmmakers prefer an exact camera to use while they're on film, but what kind of film do you tend to use?
Well, I get easily sidetracked by the shiny new. So with Sherlock Holmes and Dracula, the first films I did. Those were shot on. They were shot on a Panasonic AVC. It was one of the AVC cameras, or was it AVG? It was the AV something. So yeah, they were, they were 8mm tapes, and they were great. Or no, micro. They were micro cassettes, and great cameras all in one. But they also presented their own headaches, especially as far as like the chipset and such inside. Ghost Keepers and its follow-up Phantom of the Opera, those were both shot on Canon DSLRs, which are still marvelous creatures. They really are, because they're very, very versatile. And I believe it was the 80D, if that sounds right, that we shot those two on. And to be honest, I missed that camera. I missed having that very homogeneous. There's another one of those hipster words I'm using, where you feel like you're at one with the camera on a pistol grip, and you've got the lens and such. That's very exciting. And then as this, did I lose you, David? I think I lost you. Okay, you're coming back. There you are. You're back. Okay, lost you.
Yep.
So I was talking about the Canon. So with the Canon, it was great.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. That's all right. The Canon's great because you've got, it's like an all-in-one, and you can work that lens and play with focus and such. I enjoyed that. And then with the last film that I did, Christmas Carol, we moved on to a Blackmagic Cinecam, the Pocket Cam actually, and boy, what a game changer that technology was for the market. But again, every camera has its pros and cons, and we're doing something totally different with the next film.
Okay. Moving on to after Ghost Keepers, you did a version of Phantom of the Opera. How did you choose that particular film in between?
Well, it was a great role for me, because I'm often told I look fantastic behind a mask. Again, it's a story that I'd loved since I was a kid, growing up with the classic monsters and such. And it was very tricky, because with the budget we were working with, how do you tell this story and do it on a micro budget? If we did a film that was set in the 1800s or turn of the century, we'd have to at some point show an auditorium full of extras in evening dress at a performance of an opera. So that was never going to be a possibility. If we did it as a contemporary story, you're telling me in 2014, when the film came out, that with modern technology, security cameras, motion detectors and such, modern police techniques, some guy in a cape and a mask running around a little theater, you wouldn't be able to find him, right? So it was a matter of trying to find a mechanism to tell that story and be able to tell it credibly. Okay. And what we did is I decided to approach it as a real ghost story.
Okay.
And start with a paranormal investigation program that's doing a story about this old theater where there's this ghost story because every old theater has a ghost. So so this story, this particular theater has the Phantom of the Opera House story, and over the course of the film, we're flashing back to events in the 1930s, and there's a connection with one of the girls who's a member of this paranormal ghost program to a young lady who disappeared back in the 1930s, who was believed to have been kidnapped by the Phantom. So the story unfolds, and what's wonderful is that we were able to incorporate some parts of Gaston Leroux's novel that had never been done on film before, or had never been seen, or haven't been seen since the Lon Chaney version, and be able to tell a very, very unique version of the story, sticking very, very closely at times to the plot, but definitely to the themes. And that was a very successful film with people who have seen it. Again, it did the festivals. It has suffered a bit on video on demand because our distributor didn't know what to do with it. So they've cut together some terrible trailer that features footage from a zombie movie that has nothing to do with ours. It's not a gore fest. They've called it a Phantom of the Opera because I can't even begin to tell you why. So it's a shame because it sort of languishes out there, but it's the one film that I wish more people would see, because we did a great job with it, and we even did a 4-part TV series here in Ontario to cast our Christine. So it was an exciting project, and I'm very proud of that one.
Okay. So did you use any actors and actresses that were in any of your previous films in Phantom of the Opera?
Absolutely. So, my favorite filmmaker, and this will be a controversial response, but, looking at taking the individual on the basis of their art, my favorite filmmaker has always been Woody Allen. I love Woody Allen's work. I love the way Woody Allen shoots, and I love the way he works with very, very similar ensembles of very, very, very constant ensembles of actors. So that's something that I've sort of worked with on this end as well. Terry Wade's back in this one. Barry Ewan, Ilke Hinzer's back. He was Quincy in Dracula. Noel Pichet, wonderful, wonderful talent. Just great people that I feel comfortable working with, because when you have this family and you bring these people together, and you enjoy working with the people that you're creating with, as when you're working on an independent film, micro film, it's hell. And everybody is just thrust together. There's no barriers. There's no safe spaces. Everybody's all just kind of thrown into the mix. It's like, get out there and do it fast before the cops show. So, right. It helps when everybody gets along and you like it, and that's the way we work for sure.
Okay. Moving on. Actually, did you use a different filming location for Phantom, or did you end up using like a totally different spot?
Well, we still shot in Kingston, Ontario.
Okay.
We had access to this wonderful old theater at the university before they renovated, so it was perfect. And that place, David, was actually haunted. If you believe in ghosts, I'm telling you, that place was haunted. I had an experience, and it just added to the. We were really lucky to have that location because it sold it. It sold it for us.
Awesome. Moving on to after Phantom of the Opera, you delved into the Sherlock Holmes territory. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that project?
Well, that film was actually predates the other three. That was actually shot in 2010 and released in 2011, but we actually only got distribution after Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
The distributor said, "Do you have anything else?" And I said, "Oh, I've got this one thing we did and put out ourselves on DVD a few years ago." And they said, "Yeah, we'll take it." So Sherlock Holmes and the Shadow Watchers. I'm very proud of this. I'm in the books as well as heading one of the most reviled Sherlock Holmes movies of all time. It's like Plan 9 from Baker Street, and that's all right with me. I actually used to play Sherlock Holmes on radio in Montreal many moons ago. And just to show you how popular that was, I'm probably the only person who knows that I played Sherlock Holmes on radio back in Montreal. When I thought about making my first feature film, I wanted to do Sherlock Holmes, and a dear friend of mine, Richard Piperny, who's in the film too, he co-produced this with me, and we shot that for a whistle and a song again here in Kingston. It's a very, very, very shaky film. There are a lot of flubs. There are a lot of static moments in it, and yet, considering that we worked with a very small micro budget, that was a $2,000 movie as well.
Hmm.
Looking back on it now, I'm very pleased with what we were able to pull off. We recreated Victorian London. We had a horse and carriage. We had extras in full regatta. And it's a fun little mystery. And I do feel that that Terry Wade, who played Watson, and I had a very, very nice rapport as Holmes and Watson. And one of these days, I do kind of hope we'll get back to it, maybe on audio, and have another go at those characters.
Okay. And then you also did a film adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Back in 2015. How did you get involved with that project?
That one that's an amazing story, and that's sort of the pinnacle. So in 2014, I actually I was given a wonderful opportunity. The only opportunity I ever had to do, well, if you want to call it a studio film, I got a gig with Full Moon Entertainment to do a sequel to one of their films, Shrieker.
Okay.
So I wrote a script, and we were given a budget, and there's actually 23 minutes of completed footage from Shrieker 2 that no one's ever seen. And anyway, just as things happen, I mean, things sometimes happen behind the scenes, and you have to make very difficult decisions. And I chose to actually leave that project behind. I chose to walk from it, and I thought, well, I've gone and I've shot myself in the foot. I'm never going to make another film again. And within a matter of days of that happening, I ended up having a very close friend of mine reached out and said, you've always wanted to do A Christmas Carol. What would it take for you to do that? And I had a figure that I knew we could pull it off for, and she said, I'd like to get involved and help you make that. And so within a matter of a week or so, we had all the financing, all the funding in that we needed to make this Christmas Carol, and it was an original musical version. Because, the only thing I am trained in is music, believe it or not. It was a very, very different take on A Christmas Carol. We set it in Canada for the very, very first time, and unfortunately, our distributor didn't want to call it A Canadian Christmas Carol, which is what I wanted to actually name it, and I understand why, but as such, a lot of people are confused as to why it doesn't look like or Dickensian England, and why everybody's speaking with Canadian accents. Well, it's because it's actually set in Canada, and unfortunately, it's mentioned in the film, but it's subtle. But it was an original musical. We did a TV series to cast our Tiny Tim. One of my childhood heroes, Colin Baker, Doctor Who number 6, joined the cast, and he appeared as Charles Dickens. We became friends, and I got to sing and act on screen as a very different take on Ebenezer Scrooge. We had over 100 people involved in this production, extras in turn of the century clothing, horse and carriage again. We shot this at a historical village museum called the Lost Villages Museum up in Long Sault, Ontario, and so we had access to all these glorious old authentic locations. And the film's done very well. Like it was picked up by PBS that first year, and it was seen all across New York State and into Canada as well. There were theatrical screenings that I would go to, and afterwards I would lead the audience in a sing along. I'm very, very proud of A Christmas Carol, and every year it pops back up. So that's out there. And when that was done, David, it was a change of direction.
Definitely. I remember around that time, I remember that's when you came up with the Bleak December label shortly after that.
You're right. Yeah.
And
that was a very successful endeavor for me. I was exhausted after 5 films in a row. I had just gotten married. For a brief period of time anyway. I lost my mother and my stepfather in very short succession, and I was burnt out. I was completely burnt out, and I said, I don't have the wherewithal to make another film. So I ended up collaborating on a single of a reading of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, which I've been performing for years, with a musician friend of mine that I met on the convention circuit, and we're very good friends.
Okay.
Maurizio Guarini of the band Goblin, and of course, a lot of your viewers will know Goblin as the musical masterminds of score, Suspiria and all those great Italian horror films. So Maurizio did the music for The Raven. I did the read, and it got picked up by Cadabra Records in Syracuse. They put out a beautiful vinyl. It sold out right away, and they even did a repress on it. And when that was done, Cadabra said, "Hey, would you like to do some readings for us? And what else would you like to do?" And that's when I started to think about, okay, I'd like to go back to my old love of the radio play, but do it better, do it with a filmic sense, and get some guest stars, some of my heroes involved.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And what was your first endeavor on your label per se?
Well, after The Raven, the first release, I mean, was huge. I'd always thought, hey, wouldn't it be amazing to see a film where Tony Todd plays Dracula? And I can't believe that no one's ever done it. So I thought, hey, I'm going to do it on audio. And I thought, I thought we'd get a very, very polite, bugger off. To make a long story short, Tony Todd was absolutely on board. He's nice. He's a fanboy. He loves Dracula. He'd always wanted to do the role, and he is, in my humble opinion, the greatest audio Dracula that has ever been. That was a huge release for Cadabra. It was a huge release for us, and from that moment on, and I got to play Van Helsing opposite him, which was very, very cool. Going from Dracula to Van Helsing, and I'm playing the role again at the end of this year in another film, And that kicked off 4 wonderful years of working with some great people. I played Watson opposite Sir Derek Jacobi as Sherlock Holmes in The Hound of the Baskervilles. David Harper, Robert Powell, Malcolm McDowell. 3 of the original Doctor Who's. Just people that I love. And,
nice.
And it's been a joy. It's been an absolute joy to do all of that.
Well, and the audio world is definitely a different world than the video world, because the audio world, like it died for a little bit, but then it came back and revived. It depends. I mean, I remember listening to Lights Out when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
So
things
of that nature. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And seeing that you are part of that generation that is bringing these adaptations back into the woodworks is kind of cool.
Well, thank you. I have a passion for it too. And the nice thing is, unlike with film, the best reviews of our film, all say, well, considering the limitations they had, considering the resources they had, they did a good job, or considering, how little money they had. They. Whereas in audio, you're although these are expensive to produce, don't get me wrong, they're attainable. In audio, the only limitation is the listener's imagination, and as such, that's extraordinary. Because it allows us to be competitive, to play at an even field. And the nicest compliments that I ever receive are those that say, "You guys are as good as Big Finish," which is a company in the UK that produces Doctor Who and Torchwood and all these wonderful lush radio plays. So to be compared to that and said, to be told that you guys are at that same level, that's a beautiful thing, and that to me is the greatest success of all time. So
definitely. So how many productions has Bleak December put out now?
I am in the process of editing number 11, or is it number 12? I think it's number 12. It's number 12. Yes, it is number 12. Which is actually called number 13. It's an M.R. James adaptation, and it's a great little ghostly chiller because I love the English ghost story, and I love English ghost stories, and I love English characters so much that people think I'm British, and I was actually born in England. I was born in England, but because so many of the characters that I do have a very English accent. A lot of people, that's my natural voice, right? But this, I mean, this story is very, very English, and it's a great chiller. And it guest stars Peter Davison, who was the fifth Doctor Who, another one of my boyhood heroes. And again, to be able to work with these guys. We also just did the Wickerman, and the Wickerman audio reboot was huge, absolutely huge, because that was licensed by Studio Canal, and you can imagine what it's like to present to to Europe's biggest film label distributor and say, "Hi, I'm this small little outfit, and I'd love to remake probably your most pivotal property in the genre." But they were cool. They listened to examples of what we did. They listened to my ideas and eventually said, "Yeah, we're going to license you to do this." And we did. And I got to play Sergeant Howie, which is the equivalent of the American Nicolas Cage role. And opposite Brian Blessed is Lord Summerisle. And some very, very kind people have said in the interim, "Wow, you were so much better than Nicolas Cage." And I'll take that. I will absolutely take that. So that's a joy for me.
Nice. If there was a favorite moment that you could take from all of the films that you've done so far, what would you take from your journey here?
My favorite moment, well, I remember a couple of moments. I remember when we first did our Sherlock Holmes film. I had the audacity to hire out a theater, a little cinema, to show it on my birthday in 2011, and it was a full house. And that was very exciting to watch your film and listen to the audience respond to it. And in retrospect, I should have saved that for a slightly better film. But when we did Christmas Carol, we did our premiere at the Grand Theater in Kingston, which is the 700-seater with a balcony. It's a very old theater. Charlie Chaplin had performed there during the vaudeville years. So many of the greats had appeared on that stage. And when the movie was over, I got to walk on that stage afterwards and sing for the audience who had just seen this movie. And nice. I watched them respond to it, because it's a very, very affecting film, The Christmas Carol. It's emotional blackmail all the way through it, right? So you're taking them on that journey, and of course they're going to cry at Tiny Tim, and they're going to feel for Scrooge's redemption. And it made me realize, as a filmmaker, as an artist, as a storyteller, how you really can, take people on that journey. And it also reminds you of the responsibility that you have to be true to what you're doing, because if you're going to take them on that journey, make sure you know where you're going, if that makes sense. So that was a beautiful moment as well. And like I said, I walked away. I said, I'm probably never going to make a movie again. And I've learned never say never again, because we are 6 years later. And not only am I
find that once you get the either the filmmaking bug or the producer bug, you never get rid of it, because I've produced quite a few things myself, and knowing some of that aspect, you don't quite get rid of wanting to have a passion to pour into your avenues of creativity. So
you've hit the nail on the head right there, and it's something that we're compelled to do, whether it's good for us or not, because something I always say is the occasional time when some poor naive individual approaches me and says, can you give me some advice on filmmaking? I respond in two ways. The first thing I say is, what the heck are you asking me for? But secondly, I always say, okay, well, it's two things. Don't talk about it. If you have that passion in you, just get out there, get a camera out, shoot on your cell phone if you have to, but make a movie. Whatever you do, don't make a movie if you want to make a movie. And whatever you do, don't make a movie, because it's a nightmare. Making a film is such a it's a pleasant hell, and it's a privilege to be able to do it. But like yourself, you get this, David. I know. I don't think people who sit back skimming iTunes or Prime and looking at some of the lesser offerings, and they'll look at them and this looks cheesy or looks like it was deeply shot. Well, you know what? Yeah, it may look that way, but I'm going to tell you what, the passion that went into that production, the blood, sweat, and tears, it's legit. And sometimes it's worth giving something like that a try.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So if there was any experience dealing with the audio world, being a voice actor, which would you point out that would be probably a good memory for you?
For me, well, okay. So in a couple of years ago, I was again licensed to resurrect on audio a very old Canadian television show called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein. And it was seen in America as well, but it was shot in a small city called Hamilton. Well, it's not a small city, but a smaller city outside of Toronto called Hamilton. And it was shot in 1970. It was kind of a live action parody of the classic monsters, like variations on Dracula and Frankenstein and Igor the Wolfman.
Okay.
Hosted by Vincent Price. And it was a kid show that ran for decades. Like there was one season produced, 130 episodes were produced. It was a one-off, but it ran in syndication on all sorts of channels all across North America for decades. And I grew up with it. It was my first exposure to some of the classic monsters. And the show was produced by two brothers, Riff and Mitch Markowitz, out of Toronto. Okay. And Mitch Markowitz was actually he played a small character on the show called Super Hippie. He's the last surviving cast member of the show, and we got friendly on the convention circuit. We met a couple of times, and I got invited at London Comic Con to host his panel because the organizer said, "Hey, you're a huge Frightenstein host. Would you mind hosting the panel?" And I said, "Would I?" So we did this great conversation. And it was funny. The original Wednesday Addams from the Addams Family was on the panel as well. And
okay.
And sadly, she just kind of got shelved because I was so fixated on Frightenstein. So Mitch and I had this great conversation in front of this audience. And when it was done, he said to me, you and I, he said, we had a chemistry there. We should do this more often. And with the greatest of audacity, I said to him, well, Mitch, I run this little audio label that produces these full cast audio plays. You should let me bring Frightenstein back to life. And I thought, once again, he told me to take a long walk off a short pier, but he didn't. And he asked to hear some of our work. And again, I provided some samples of the Bleak December catalog. And he came back and he said, you know what? I've got a good feeling about this. Let's do it. And what ended up happening, David, was I ended up producing the very, very first new Frightenstein episode in 48 years. And not only was I able to do that, I was able to get Malcolm McDowell to hop on board to step in for Vincent Price as host, which he did for Vincent Price because they were dear friends up until the end of Price's life, which I didn't know. And he dedicated his work to Vincent.
Nice.
And Mitch came back on. He reprised Super Hippie on the show. And for me, the greatest joy was I got to now voice some of these characters that Billy Van had voiced in the original show in 1970 that were so much a part of my childhood. So, after him, I'm the next official guy. I was official. I was the guy. I'm still until the TV reboot hits. I'm still the reigning, Count Frightenstein and librarian and Oracle. So that was a great joy. It went out on CD. I got to do a lot of conventions with Mitch, who was such an icon and also a dear friend now, and that was a great joy. And then the Wickerman comes along as almost our next project, and that was just astonishing. And I was terrified. I thought we were going to be crucified for even daring to touch this sacred Citizen Kane of horror films, as they call it. But that's gone over really well. It's been well reviewed, and I'm very, very proud of The Wickerman. Now,
you've done adaptations on audio for A Christmas Carol as well as a Canterbury Tale, correct?
Well, we've done Canterville Ghost, the Canterville Ghost, Colin Baker, and we've done A Christmas Carol on audio with Sylvester McCoy as Scrooge, and I got to play Jacob Marley in that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but A Christmas Carol's been part of my life for a long time. I used to do a one-man show where I would do music well with it, and yeah.
Okay. Now, how would you like to tell us about your newest endeavor? Bug-eyed monsters why don't you tell us a little bit about?
Every time I say the title, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So it used to be Bug-eyed Monsters. Now it's Bug-eyed Monsters Invade the Earth, which I think speaks volumes to the. It's not a subtle title. Let's put it that way. This is an original that very much has been a part of me for several years. I had the idea for this film in 2015 and couldn't flesh out the storyline until earlier in 2020 when it was later in 2020 when all of a sudden I had this epiphany, and it's like, oh yes, this is how we get from point A to point B. A little slow on the uptake apparently, if it took me 5 years. So it's a story about the things that we love. It's a story about those parts of our childhood that we can't let go of. It's about love. It's about loss. It's about disappointment. It's about triumph, and it's got bug-eyed monsters in it, right? So that's that's sort of the selling point, the pitch point of the film. I think I've lost you again, David. Have I lost you? I think we've lost David. I'm sure he'll be right back. David, if you're there, I can't hear you or see you, unfortunately.
All right, apologize about that.
And we're back. Good. Well, welcome back to the show. Right, so
sometimes the connections.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah. So, Bug-eyed Monsters Invade the Earth. This is the closest that I'm ever going to get to play Doctor Who. It's certainly very much an autobiographical piece to some degree about my own love for that classic show when I was younger, and also it's a celebration. It's a love letter to fanboys and fangirls and fellow geeks all over the spectrum. It's about a young guy by the name of Huckman, and Huckman being played by Seb Godin, who's he's a filmmaker based in North Bay who's made some notable films himself. Okay. So Huckman's a big fan of this crazy little show for kids that was shot in his city back in the 70s and 80s called The Adventures of Professor Curio. And Professor Curio, it's a very, very thinly veiled Doctor Who. Now, I have to say, for legal purposes, it's a Doctor Who parody. Parody is a very important word. So he's obsessed with this show, and what he does is he organizes this bus trip with this band of miscreants who are big fans of the show, and they're going to tour around to various locations where the show was shot. And he's also, as a surprise, engaged the services of the original actor who played the professor on TV, my character, to show up in costume, and he's going to show some people around this particular location. While they're in the middle of nowhere, the bus breaks down and they find themselves stuck right at the center of a real alien invasion. And it's a very, very comical invasion story. While all that's going on, the original actor shows up in costume. The folks on the bus, they can't even get dressed in the morning. There's no way they're going to be able to figure out how to defeat this alien menace. So he has to take control, and it becomes an episode of Dr. Curio. So I've described it as it's Galaxy Quest for Doctor Who fans, but it certainly appeals to a broader range of people. And the coolest thing, David, is that as the voice of the main alien baddie, who's portrayed by a puppet on screen, we have Sylvester McCoy. And Sylvester McCoy was the seventh Doctor Who. He was in the Hobbit films. He's a very well-known actor. He's a marvelous comic and dramatic actor, and he's already wrapped his work on this. So it's a very, very special film. And the film is happening 100%. And what we're doing is we're running an Indiegogo campaign to try and grow our budget a little so that we can make the best film that we possibly can. And that's that's one of the reasons why why I'm here right now is to chat directly to the folks who are watching and listening to this. There are some amazing perks if you can help us out. Please get involved. Help us with this Indiegogo campaign. I've never done one of these before, but we're doing very well so far. I think we're at 55% of our goal, and there's still a month and a half left. It's a project near and dear. Great perks from digital copies of the film to DVDs to props from the film, scripts, producer opportunities as well. So it's made with a lot of love. Some of the people who have appeared in my films before are going to be in this one, and it's going to be, without a doubt, it's the best script I've ever written, I think. Even if all the other stuff was garbage, this is the best garbage I've ever written. So I think it's going to be a very special endeavor.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for your time, and I appreciate you coming on to help us get to know you a little better. At least some of the people, hopefully someone will listen out there. And to me, I have a love of independent filmmaking and how the process is to the filmmaker. So it was interesting hearing it from your eyes and your.
Thank you. So David, whereabouts are you located?
I'm actually located in Milwaukee, but many of my producer opportunities that I've come across are all over. So
all over. It's amazing. It's amazing how filmmakers have all come together, right? So I think it's so exciting that I'm sitting here in Kingston, Ontario. You're in Milwaukee, and we can communicate like this, and we can reach people everywhere. And what an exciting time it is for filmmakers right now as well, because the tools to make good films or to make reasonable films are, we carry them around every day in our phone,
right.
And I'm so excited. I love independent film just like you do. I love to see what people are doing with micro budgets and just getting out there and creating and, getting something seen is always the issue. But, the very fact that so many people are creating right now, this is a period of time that we're going to look back up on as a renaissance. And so I say thank you to yourself for giving us a spotlight, a forum to talk about our work, and congratulations as well to everybody else out there who's pursuing their passions.
Definitely, man. Now I know you. We're saying, how do I tell someone what kind of advice to give anyone? But is that the kind of advice that you would give someone?
My advice is get out there and do it. I've met too many people who say, I've got this idea for a film, and I don't think I'll ever make it, or I'd love to make a film, but no. Listen, get out there, just do it. Just do it. Kids are doing it on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. Get out there, just try it. Try making a film. And I think people will discover that it's we're gonna see. I was blown away by Host, which is on Shudder right now, which was conceived and shot during the lockdown. And I think it's a great horror film. I think it's a really effective horror film that that was done for a whistle and a song, and takes our current limitations and just uses them as a mechanism to make a really good, solid horror film. Don't set out to make Citizen Kane, but a 2.5 or 3-star film, that's a good place to be. I like the middle of the road, So that's my advice: is listen, don't take it. Listen to your own voice. Get out there. Make your movie your way. Learn from your mistakes, and who knows? Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see you at a festival at some time.
All right, very cool, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure, and definitely check out the link. It will be listed here above. once I repost the link, that is where this is broadcasting from. So
Thank you very much, David. Thank you so much. Let's
and
do it again.
just go out and see some of Anthony Mann's films. It's definitely a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. We'll do this again.
Definitely.
Take care.